a lot of the metaverse in China will look like what we're seeing in the West. Like you're going to see a lot of gaming. You are going to see a lot of like social gathering platforms on metaverse, like these VR hardware. So that part I think is going to be similar. One thing I noticed that could be interesting is that just recently in the last year in China, there's a really big passion for virtual idols, or sometimes in the West, we call it virtual YouTubers or VTubers. But just in China, there's a lot of brands, a lot of events, they're like jumping in to say, hey, we have our own virtual idols now. And they're actually like gathering a lot of fans, especially that comes in a year when the Chinese entertainment industry was having a lot of troubles, and these virtual idols just like emerged to become like the new trend leaders, or like the celebrities with big advertising deals. So that's something that really can be integrated into the metaverse because they're also kind of this like virtual beings. They're still really well into the metaverse concept. And I think in China, a lot of the brands, a lot of the platforms are going to develop hard into this like virtual idol idea. That's something I haven't really seen in the West yet, but I feel like it can happen here too. For a product to be good enough to have a really large following, it actually needs like years of development. A lot of those metaverse products wants to compare themselves to Animal Crossing, which was really popular during the pandemic. But the development of Animal Crossing took like 4 or 5 years, I think. So right now, all of these metaverse products in China really took a very short time. Like basically, they started after this concept started to become popular. So they're not honestly good enough to keep the users. If one day there is one, maybe they can challenge something like WeChat. But the thing is that Tencent is also developing metaverse products for itself. So it's when these like smaller players are growing, Tencent is growing, Tencent is developing metaverse too. So it's really hard to see that in the future where a small player will completely dethrone WeChat. But we have seen TikTok do that, so it's still possible. What we're seeing is that a lot of the local governments, which include governments like Beijing and Shanghai, to at least vocally say that metaverse is going to be something that we're developing in the next 5 years, like in their economic planning. So at least this is a political signal that for now, it's safe for these private companies to develop metaverse. And in some rare cases, the local governments are actually contracting these companies to pay them to build a metaverse gallery, a metaverse city hall on those platforms. So I think this is pretty rare, as I said, because like a lot of the governments are not fast at like adapting to new technology. But I think what made this change is that we sometimes forget that the local governments, they're not only serving a political purpose, but also they're also serving an economic purpose. Like they want to keep the economy growing. They want to grow the local GDP, and they're sometimes even competing with like neighboring province or cities because like they're all growing their own GDP numbers. So in this case, the local governments are actually really hungry at like trying to find what's the next thing that can keep the economy growing. And in the recent years, a lot of tech products, a lot of tech platforms like live streaming, like e-commerce, like electric vehicles, these are the things that really drive the economy growing. So I think a lot of governments are saying that maybe metaverse can become one of them. Maybe metaverse can really become something that generates revenue, that employs a lot of people, and can define kind of like the next generation of internet. When they're building new platforms, they're going to have something interesting to attract the users, and that can really be like working with brands. Like this can be an opportunity to both promote a platform and a brand. I think these are something that we are going to see a lot in the future because at least for now, in the limited NFT area in China, which we call it digital collectible, we are seeing companies like Alipay and Tencent work with other consumer brands to release their own like NFT collections. I think that's going to be the same in the metaverse. I think already on the Baidu-owned platform, metaverse platform Xirang, you can see that there are some consumer companies having their presence there because they are the only few things there. So if a new user is trying to explore the metaverse, they're going to see these brands first.